Welcome to TisTalk.
Welcome to TisTalk. This is a podcast coming from Tisbury, Wiltshire and surrounding villages. I'm Julianne Murphy.
And I'm Mary Myers. It's the 19th of May. Welcome to TisTalk. And this week I'm co-presenting with Kate Gamm. Hello,
Hi,
Kate.
Hi, Mary.
Thanks for coming along to this very well-appointed studio in Warder, especially for it. No, not really. It's my study. Now, you are a Tisbury resident and a long-time collaborator with TisTalk. People might like to know a little bit about your radio background and also why you've been in London recently being a judge to do with radio.
Indeed, I have had a radio show on a community radio station in Exeter for just under 6 years now. And I also do some occasional reporting for BBC Radio Wiltshire. And as a result of that, I'm a member of the Radio Academy, and they have an annual award, which this year I've been a judge for. And I've judged the Best New Presenter category.
Right.
And what's great about the ARIAs is that it's a level playing field, whether you work for the BBC, commercial radio or community radio, you stand an equal chance of winning. And I'm pleased to say that in my particular category, the winner, up against a lot of BBC local radio presenters, was somebody from the Prison Radio Association.
From Prison Radio?
Yeah, Best New Presenter. Very, very good. She's lived a life. She can engage with her audience and the wider audience. You don't need to have been in prison to kind of know where she's coming from. So,
Is she out of prison now?
She is now, yeah.
Okay. Do we know what she did?
Well, I don't.
Okay. All right.
But on Wednesday I was up in London in Leicester Square, and the Radio Academy took over the whole of the Odeon Leicester Square. And there were lots of presenters there that I recognised from Radio 3, Radio 4, Radio 2. And in fact, it was presented by Gok 1 and Clara Ampho from Radio 1. Radio 3 won Best Station of the Year because of its recent sort of revamp, which I know is controversial for some, but for others it's brought in a bigger audience, and so it's, you know, kind of changing direction. And it was just great to be there amongst all these interesting people.
Rather glamorous.
It was, but then, as I say, community radio were winning Best Local Station,
Great.
Best New Presenter and other awards. So that's what's great about it, is that community radio presenters can be both judges and winners.
And did you wear a special frock?
Well, it said smart dress only, and I thought, well, okay, I've got to think about this. So, I managed to dig out, you know, something decent from the wardrobe that I don't often wear.
Great.
But, you know, not everyone dressed up particularly, but some people really did.
And of course, that's the beauty of radio as well.
Yes.
You don't have to worry about the cameras. Yeah.
It's funny how, you know, people like Greg James, he presented the Best New Presenter Award, was just wearing jeans and a T-shirt. So
right.
I think that in some ways, the more famous you are, the more likely you are to dress down.
Well, we'll have to put ourselves forward next year.
It's open to podcasts as well. So yes,
right.
why wouldn't you?
Yes, why not? Okay.
Only thing is, I won't be able to judge it, Mary. That's the only downside.
Oh, you mean we couldn't do some insider deal? Oh, a shame.
So, Mary, what's coming up on this week's episode of TisTalk?
Okay, well, we've got Gerry Murray to start with, our new councillor. After that, we have Anne-Marie Deane, who is a stalwart of the village and the memory group, and she's talking about Dementia Awareness Week, which is this week, 19th to the 25th of May. Then we have Jacqueline Longley, who Julianne and I have called Bikini Lady in the past, because she wrote a letter to the Times last year about how she wears a bikini in her 80s.
I remember that.
Very loud and proud. She is too.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's remembering VE Day as an 8-year-old girl.
Wow.
Yeah. Then we have Nicola Bartlett about a new history display. And Peter Shallcross is next, talking about the weather. And finally, we have What's On.
Sounds great. First up, Mary has been to meet our new councillor, Gerry Murray.
Well, I'm up at the Nadder Centre with Gerry Murray, who is our new councillor. Firstly, congratulations, Gerry.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for coming on TisTalk. Now, we want to know a little bit about you because you've won the election locally and you're a Lib Dem. But I think maybe that's the only thing that people know.
Okay, well, briefly, I've lived in Tisbury with my family for about 10 years. I've been a parish councillor for 9 of those years in Tisbury. And, since I moved here, I've been semi-retired. So I've involved myself a lot in the voluntary side of life with the parish council, with the community land trust. And also a big part of what I've done has been on neighbourhood planning. I was involved in TIS Plan 1 and also in TIS Plan 2, which is under examination at the moment. And those are clearly very important documents to manage what happens to Tisbury.
Right. You say you're retired. Can I just quickly ask you what you were before retirement?
Well, my professional life, I started many, many, many years ago as a journalist, and I progressed into publishing management. And just before I retired, the previous 10 years, I was in parliamentary publishing in Westminster. I was the publisher of the House magazine, which is the magazine for MPs and peers, and a very esteemed publication called Dodd's Parliamentary Companion.
Right.
When I retired, my wife and I moved down here. We'd just had a young son, Jack, who's 11 now, and I was able to involve myself in all sorts of voluntary stuff. I was born in Belfast.
Okay.
I'm a child of the Northern Ireland Troubles, a Northern Irish Catholic in the 1950s, which is a pretty tricky place to find yourself in those days.
Yeah.
And that's been very formative. I left Northern Ireland when I was 18 to go to university, and I never really went back.
Right. But then why Tisbury?
Well, Tisbury is because of my wife. Her parents live in Wiltshire, and we lived together in London for several years. And as the parents grew a little older, we knew there'd be a caring responsibility, which has come to pass. We spent a year looking for a place in Wiltshire, and we didn't know anything about Tisbury at all. It is a well-kept secret, Tisbury.
It is.
And one day we just bumped into it. We somehow ended up driving up the high street and thought, this is amazing. And the house that we live in now, it came on the market about a month later.
Yeah, you live in Vicarage Road, do you?
We live in Vicarage Road in the original vicarage to St John's Church.
So just remind us what parishes you cover actually as a councillor in the Wiltshire Council.
Well, it's about 3,650 individuals,
Right.
and they're spread along 5 parishes. There's obviously Tisbury, then West Tisbury, then the 2 Donhead St Mary and Donhead St Andrew, and then going back out the other way towards East Noyle, there's Fonthill Gifford Parish.
Okay.
So those are the 5, about 3,600 individuals.
So before we ask you just a few fun questions about yourself, just a bit of serious stuff. What are your priorities at the moment for us as a village and as an area?
Well, look, let me say at this point that we have had an extremely good and effective councillor in Dick Budden in place, and it is a matter of some regret that Dick felt he had to stand down for health reasons. Nobody wanted that. Big shoes to fill, but I'm going to try and fill them. So there are 3 priorities, really, that I think people really care about and that came over to me on the doorstep during the campaign. One is definitely the terrible state of the roads.
The roads.
That's everywhere. That's Tisbury, West Tisbury, and in the Donheads. And, they have been neglected. These C-class roads have been neglected. Not enough money has been spent on them. And, we want that changed. We want more priority given to these unclassified and C-class roads.
Yes.
And depending on who takes over at the council, we'll probably succeed in doing that. And as it happens, on Tuesday the 20th, there will be an election for the leader, and whoever wins that election will form the administration. No matter who is elected, we're going to have to find money from somewhere to mend these roads, because they are in a terrible state, and people really care about that.
Yes.
The second priority that I have is affordable housing. Tisbury has a house price problem. We all know that. It's a terribly expensive place for people to live. Before I was elected, I was chair of the Community Land Trust, which is trying to organise the affordable housing up at the sports centre. That is ground to a halt for a variety of reasons. And one of my top priorities is to kickstart that again.
Okay. Hopefully we can catch up with you in a few weeks' time to ask you about more detail on that. Yes.
Well, it's a tricky situation, but it can be solved. And I'm determined to have a go at it.
Good. Let's hope so.
And the third priority that a lot of people talked about was the environment. The state of the Nadder River, not just from the point of view of sewage spillage, which is a serious issue, but also phosphate pollution from the runoff from agriculture,
yes,
which is damaging the river and and killing the wildlife, and people care about that.
So just a few sort of fun questions, really, Gerry. What would you say you most like and dislike about Tisbury?
Look, there's an awful lot to like about Tisbury, but I think there's something that's brilliant in Tisbury that we take for granted, and that is the preschool and the school.
St John's.
St John's School.
Any dislikes?
House prices.
Okay. But what gets you out of bed in the morning, Gerry?
Well, both literally and metaphorically, it's my 11-year-old son. He gets me out of bed. I've been very fortunate to have been able to have a child later in life. I've got 3 grown-up children who, are in their 30s now and 40s. Jack is 11. He's an incredibly interesting individual, and if anything really motivates me during the day, it's him. I'd rather flip the question on its head, though, is what makes me sleep at night. And this comes directly from my own upbringing, from my mother, is, to go to bed knowing that you've actually done something with the day. And as you get older and you go into retirement or semi-retirement, that becomes an issue, because your day isn't laid out for you. You have to decide what to do with your day. And I like to think at the end of the day, well, I did that, accomplished this, I did that. I'm quite a driven person, and that's very annoying for some people. I appreciate that, but it's the way I am, and I like to think at the end of the day I've done something worthwhile.
Do you think you're imparting that drive to your son?
And not visibly yet.
Okay. 11-year-olds, go their own way, don't they?
They do.
Yes. Yeah. And what's your favourite dish that you'd take to a desert island?
Well, I'm a singer myself, and I love choral music. My 3 favourites are Fauré's Requiem, Verdi's Requiem, and Mozart. I think at the moment I would say Mozart's Requiem.
Okay, well, we'll get an extract for you for that. And what's your favourite local view, Gerry?
The view that I really like and that I always take guests and visitors to is at Fonthill Lake, south on the bridge over the waterfall looking north, and particularly in the autumn when you get trees changing colour on either side. I think that's definitely my favourite.
Yeah, great. Okay, complete the sentence. Not many people know this about Tisbury, but
in 2016, a very extensive Roman villa was discovered, not in Tisbury village, but very close by.
Oh, yeah.
And probably 3 stories. And it was discovered in someone's garden when they were laying some cables across the garden. Now, I was told by someone who knows exactly where it is, and I've never been, because they told me, if I tell you where this is, you must never go. You must never draw attention to it.
Oh.
Because they don't want people tramping across their garden looking for the mosaics that are there.
I see. But the location's never been properly revealed.
Well, it's never been hidden, but it's not talked about.
Oh.
This is 2016. If you go back to National News Stories in 2016, you'll find it.
Oh, how interesting. Okay, I haven't warned you about this, but this is quick fire, okay? Dogs or cats?
Neither.
Okay. Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Beer or wine?
Wine.
Football or rugby?
Ooh, these days rugby.
Okay. And for music, would you choose radios 1, 2 or 3 or 6? BBC?
3 and 6.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gerry.
You're welcome. Thank you.
TisTalk, a podcast from Tisbury on tistalk.buzzsprout.com.
Next, we have Anne-Marie Deane, who runs the Tisbury Memory Group, talking about National Dementia Awareness Week.
Dementia Action Week was founded by Alzheimer's Society, and they work in conjunction with individuals and organisations, including Wiltshire Council. And their main aim is to raise awareness so that people go and find out about a diagnosis if they actually are affected by dementia. So many people are concerned that they might have dementia.
Yes.
And instead of going and finding out about it, they hide themselves away.
Okay.
Why is a diagnosis vital? Because they are if they don't get a diagnosis, they're missing out on care, on treatment, and support. These are all things that they as individuals need and also their families need. It's really, really important. And it's so easy to get a diagnosis. They can go to their GP. It's a 20-question test. Can either go to the GP. If they're embarrassed about going to the GP initially to talk about it, then they can go to the Alzheimer's Society site on the internet, and they can look for the 20 questions, and they can fill those out. It will basically tell them whether they should have a concern or not, and whether to go and see their GP.
Right. What kind of questions are they?
Very simple questions. I mean, I'm not going to go into them because then they'll be forewarned that they know the answer. So it's not really fair on that one. 1 in 3 people with dementia are not diagnosed, which I think is a horrendous number. And there's so much support that we can give to people with dementia. We, as Memory Group, we do have people with dementia that come along because it's very important that they are part of society and come out and see the rest of the world. You know what it was like during the COVID pandemic. We were at home. Our brains started to
Disintegrate.
I mean, trying to have a conversation got very, very difficult. And I noticed when people came back to groups after the COVID pandemic, it was very, very hard for them to start communicating. This happens with people that lock themselves away, whether they have dementia or any other form of short-term memory loss.
Yes.
People don't want to know about dementia.
No.
Unfortunately, it's one of those things that we've got to get used to in society and accept because it is on the increase. But but people can live a long and very good life with dementia. It isn't a downward spiral straight away. Oh, I've got dementia. That's it. I'm finished. It's not at all. We have people in our group. You wouldn't know who they were. We never pointed out. We never mentioned the D word in our groups. So that people, they come, they join in. You can, we have one wonderful lady and she got diagnosed and she wrote 4 books after her diagnosis. I mean, come on.
Wow.
This is completely possible, isn't it? Your brain doesn't shut down. It's just that you might not remember what you had for breakfast.
Right.
But Your brain's got an awful lot of cells there working overtime to make up for those bits that are gone. So
you see, so it's all to do with losing the short-term memory, but often retaining the long-term.
Absolutely.
Yes, I see. Yeah.
It's like, looking at a bookcase and it's full of books and you gradually lose the ones off the top shelf.
Okay.
And then gradually, perhaps as the stages go on over the years, then you lose more books off the different shelves.
Yes, I see. But it was the ones that you bought and treasured when you were a child that you
still remember. Anyway, we are part of it this year because our memory group falls midweek.
Okay.
We are going to do a reminiscence session. So everyone is to bring a snapshot, because we are actually doing a snapshot in time. So they bring a photograph of something that evokes wonderful memories. It may be a happy memory. It might be a sad memory. I think it's going to be quite an emotional session. So we decided that we needed to restore spirits after that discussion. We are having tea, but it's old-fashioned tea. We asked everyone what their grandmothers used to produce for them for their tea and what their mothers used to produce. So we've got some amazing old-fashioned things, old-fashioned salmon. I've been looking for paste. Do you remember meat paste and fish paste in little jars? I think it was Shipman's or someone. And then wonderful cake. Someone said, "Oh, I used to have Battenberg," and I'm like, Battenberg? Oh my goodness, I haven't seen that in a long while. So again, a good old Victoria sponge. So it's going to be an absolute array of sandwiches and cakes. So it will delight the taste buds.
Sounds lovely.
And if anyone comes along and it's their first time coming along, then it will be free to attend.
Oh, nice.
And that is all as a part of Dementia Action Week. And this is being promoted again by Alzheimer's Society.
Great. So tell us the dates.
Between the 19th and the 25th of May.
Okay. And the memory group, just a reminder of the times, dates.
It will be on the 21st of May, and it will be between 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock at Hinton Hall.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Anne-Marie. That's great. And good luck for next week's Action Week.
Thank you very much.
This is TisTalk from Tisbury, Wiltshire.
Next, as a little bit more on the VE celebrations last week, we have Anne Martin talking to Jackie Longley, who remembers 80 years ago being at Buckingham Palace.
Certainly had as much right as anywhere to celebrate victory, and London certainly did. Naturally, approaches to Buckingham Palace were almost continually jammed. Large crowds outside the palace, cheering and waiting. And when the royal family appeared,
I'm standing outside St John's Church after our concert in the church, singing lots of old wartime songs, and I've met a really interesting lady called Jackie Longley, who was actually outside Buckingham Palace in 1945. So tell us what it was like, Jackie.
It was absolutely wonderful. I remember my mother suddenly said, "Oh, come on, let's go up to the palace." My father was at work, and off we went. When we got there were crowds and crowds and crowds. I was very small for my age, and my mother had to lift me up. But we shouted, "We want the king," and 4 times we did, and 4 times they came out all and waved to us, and it was so wonderful. And then it got a bit scary because there were so many crowds, and a policeman picked me up, and we went back home. We got on the tube and went back home, and when my father came in, he was very cross. He said, "How dare you take my daughter somewhere like that? She could have been crushed." But I was so pleased she did. It's been a wonderful memory.
Oh gosh, that's absolutely fantastic. It seems like, can you remember it almost as if it was yesterday?
I remember it. It was one of the most wonderful days ever. Of my life. I was never frightened. I was in London because my father's job was there. I was little to be evacuated, so my brother went to Salisbury to my grandmother. But I stayed, and I can remember going off to school waving my gas mask and going down the shelter at night. But my parents never showed fear, and I didn't either. So.
And can you remember the Blitz then?
Oh yes, I remember my father was a hospital officer in Wandsworth Prison, and there was a house bombed very near to us, and of course all the prison officers ran home to make sure their families were all right, and all the locks fell off the doors in the prison, and none of the prisoners came out. They all stayed there.
How incredible!
And my father was a hospital officer, so all the minor injuries started coming into our house. The other ones went to hospital, and we ran out of bandages, so my mother tore up her sheets and bandaged people, and I remember seeing them do that. But again, never feeling the slightest bit frightened.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your memories. That's really good.
Oh, thank you for asking me. I feel very honoured.
This is TisTalk from Tisbury, Wiltshire.
Next, Nicola Bartlett from the History Society sent in this message to TisTalk, all about their display up at the Nadder Centre.
You may have seen that the Tisbury History Society had a VE display at St John's Church about the men and women who lost their lives in World War II, alongside the lovely floral display by Tisbury Flower Group. There is another history display outside the library at the Nadder Centre, which will be there until the end of May for History Month. This features events, newspaper cuttings, and photos relating to the month of May, so do take a look. The next open archive of the Tisbury History Society at the Nadder Centre is on the 2nd of June from 10 o'clock till 12.
Follow us on Instagram at TisTalk Radio.
We hope you're enjoying this lovely warm weather we're having. Here's farmer Peter Shallcross with his views.
I'm with Peter Shallcross again on Warmmead Farm, and it's a beautiful day, but am I talking to a farmer who's pissed off with this weather, or what?
Well, I'm actually enjoying every day because it's very unusual to have a spring this long and so good for grazing and for wildlife. There's lots of reasons to be very happy with it.
Yeah. Oh well, that's good. So you're not worried about?
I am very worried, but there's nothing much I can do about it. Only worry about the things that I can change. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I have made some contingencies to get particularly more conserved forage, more silage in. So I'm buying grass from elsewhere, try to make up for a huge shortfall.
Oh, okay. Oh, shall we go up and have a look at the silage now?
So we've made it in 2 goes. So I bought some grass off a farmer at Semley, and he wanted that taken off because it was a huge yield and it was in danger of all falling over if it got rained on. So we did that first of all, and then we did our own last week. And even then with those 2 cuts, it hasn't filled the clamp up by more than a third. Last year the whole thing was full up.
At about this time of year?
Yeah, with the same amount of grass. And with the grass at Teffent, we didn't even bring that back because there was so little. It had hardly grown at all because of the dry weather.
Right.
So we just made a few bales and left it at Teffent for the young stock.
Right. So now how many weeks of dry weather have we had now?
Well, Dad,
have you been counting it?
Yeah, well, Dad keeps a rain gauge, and we had a look the other couple of days ago, and March there was, I think, 5 mil, so nothing in March.
Right.
And then in April there was I think 30 mil, so probably half or a third of what we normally get, and that didn't even touch the sides. And then May we haven't had a drop. We've missed the thunderstorms, which they weren't going to give very much anyway.
Yeah, last week.
Yeah, so basically we haven't had any appreciable rain since very early March.
Yeah. If this drought carries on, What were you thinking?
Yes, well, there's other problems because we planted the maize as the other half of the winter forage, and some of that has come up because it was drilled very deep into the remaining moisture. But that will need rain in the next few weeks, otherwise that will be a problem. So yes, I think whatever happens, unless there's a complete change of weather within before June, before the end of June, say, a lot of people will be in great problems, I think. And it's not just dairy farmers, obviously. It's the arable crops and the vegetable crops that potatoes, because the irrigation's going to be hard. There'll be bans on irrigation soon.
And what about the cows generally? Are they happy?
It's been the best spring ever. The rain's are usually a big problem. It creates the mud, and then the cows walk in wet soil and contaminate the grass, and then they don't eat it. So there's a lot more waste, and also the grass has been growing slower than normal, so it's been in better condition. So the cows have been eating vast quantities, and actually is only just starting to slow down.
And giving vast quantities of milk?
Yeah, milk's really good, and the butterfat and protein, which is what I got paid for, is held up for a change.
Yes.
So actually it's been a really good spring.
Last time you said that the milk price was up as well.
Yeah,
so that's good.
Yeah, I don't quite understand it. I think it's always supply and demand, but so I think the supply is still down worldwide because it's a worldwide market.
Right, that's good. Thanks a lot, Peter. Finally, here are the What's-Ons with Simon Davison.
Here are the What's-On listings for the week beginning May the 19th. On Tuesday the 20th, there is chair yoga, 11:15 to 12:15 a.m. at the Hinton Hall, a free session of gentle yoga moves adapted for the chair. At 6 p.m, Tisbury Parish Council Environment Committee will be meeting at the Reading Room. Following this, at 7 p.m, Tisbury Parish Council is holding its annual village meeting, also at the Reading Room. All are welcome. Perhaps of most interest is the small grant funding for local groups. Up to £300 is available. On Wednesday the 21st, from 10 to 11:30 a.m, TisTalk's Stay and Play group for 0 to 3 years meets in the Methodist Church. From 10 to 12 noon, there is a memory group special session for Dementia Awareness Week on personal recollections. This is at the Hinton Hall. At 7, for a 7:30 p.m. start, Tisbury Gardening Club meets at the Methodist Church Hall. On Thursday the 22nd, from 10 to 11:30 a.m. at the Methodist Church Hall, there is a free session of RNID Near You, a hearing support session for Salisbury Hospital audiology hearing aid users. From 2:30 to 4:15 p.m, there is an afternoon tea with music at the Victoria Hall. Entrance £5. Call Marion on 870 813 to book. At 6:30 p.m, there is a footpath club evening walk of 3 miles, leaving from the square in Tisbury. Contact the walk organiser, Sandra Sampson, to book your place by texting her at 07802 522 098. In Hindon, the Farrant Singers are in concert at Hindon Church. Doors open at 7:15 for an 8 p.m. start. On Saturday 24th, at 8:30 p.m. at the Bennett pub in Tisbury, solo vocalist Tony Scottern will be playing ska, reggae, indie, pop and rock music. At 7 p.m. in the Victoria Hall, there is the film A Complete Unknown, a biopic of Bob Dylan starring Timothy Chalamet. For tickets, go online to www.tisburycarnival.co.uk/films. On Sunday the 25th at 4:45 for 5 p.m. at the Victoria Hall, there is a showing of the Royal Ballet on screen. Tickets £15, under 18s £8, bar available. From 4:30 p.m. at the Boot Inn, There's an open mic evening. All are welcome. We hope you have a lovely week.
That's all from us this week. We'd love to hear from you. You can contact us on tistalkradio@gmail.com.
So do listen in next week for more stories from Tisbury. Bye-bye.
Bye.